your coffee shop is not just serving espresso. We're going to talk about some things as it relates to really small businesses. So first off, who's this James guy? So I founded Secure Point Solutions 2019. We don't work with SMB. I actually kind of dislike that term. We work with the VSB, the very small businesses. I have a large number of solopreneurs that probably will not ever grow. I also have companies as big as 50 people, but we help the little guy. And that's what this is going to be about. Before jumping in and doing my own thing, I was with an MSP. I've been with small business stuff for well over a decade now. Sysadmin things, Microsoft, HP, those kind of, yeah, I hated sysadmin. And then before that, I was actually like deleting my TCP IP stack out of my Windows computer because I didn't know better. And at the same time, I was also defending your country, working operations and intelligence. So intelligence is always a kind of an oxymoron with the military. All right, I'm going to apologize to any Splunk lords, CrowdStrike Jedis, any of you that love to reverse malware. You ain't going to see any of that crap. What you are going to get is some weird-ass coffee drawings, some memes, and probably a little bit of snark, okay? All right. Anyone that's in here, by a show of hands, if you work in a company with less than 50 people, but you are not a security vendor, anyone work in a company less than 50 and not in a security vendor? 1, 2 couple. Okay. All right, good. Because this talk is actually meant for you all. So we're going to talk a little bit about just how many small businesses, what that problem looks like. So 13 million businesses in the United States have 9 or less users. 13 million. If you extend that out to 20 or less users, you're upwards of 20 million plus. Matt Lee, good human being, spoke yesterday, I think, or this morning. I don't remember now. He had told me at one point that is over 40% of America's gross domestic product. And these are not, big time companies. These are your coffee shops. These are your children's dentist office. This is your chiropractor. All the businesses that help make your community run are in here. Getting even further into things, mortgage lender processing contractors. So I'm from Central Iowa. For those of you that don't know, we have a very large mortgage, finance, insurance industry. I'm seeing some of my SecDSM fans, kind of nodding their heads and whatnot. But a lot of those large companies, the Wells Fargos and the Principal Financials of the world, they work with real small businesses to process certain applications, process certain work. And all they give them is, here's this third-party sheet that you got to answer the questions on. And if you are working in a mortgage lending job, or you work for that, you probably aren't going to be able to answer half those questions without some help. So you're probably guessing. Other ones that kind of come to mind, companies HVAC. Anyone remember the name Fazio Mechanical? I got one in the back and I heard a giggle. All right. So Fazio Mechanical. Oh, I'm sorry. I had other bullet points. So a lot of these companies don't have the support. They're too small for a typical MSP. Most MSPs will have a minimum where they want 20 or more, or whatever the case may be. There's vendor limitations. So when I started my company, my first thought was, well, I'm going to resell CrowdStrike. And I reached out to them. They scheduled a meeting with me. And they said, yeah, we will sell you a pack of 10,000 seats. And I said, that's amazing. What am I going to do with the other 9,990? Because I have one customer with 10 right now. And he's like, well, maybe you should partner with somebody. I'm like, maybe you should go pack sand because I want to do my own thing. So they don't have the support. They also still get suckered into all of those myths that are out there. And we're going to kind of dive into those here. So some of the myths, and we've probably heard most of these, but we've also maybe not known how to really dispel them. So that first one, too small to be hacked. Have you ever shown somebody Shodan that doesn't actually really know much about stuff? If you want to make that really impactful, especially companies that either their employees work from home or their employees, or they don't have a central office, look for things like the Minecraft servers that are still vulnerable to Log4j. Look at, obviously the things like the webcams and all the other ones that we kind of know about, but explain to them, hey, your kid, thank you for showing, pulling up IP chicken and getting your external IP. Thank you for showing that. And, oh, your kid plays Minecraft. Yeah, I know that because he has a Minecraft server exposed to the internet. And, oh, by the way, it's not patched. So your work computer may now be at risk. All right. So then the next one, I bought product X. I should be fine. Okay. Well, they also bought a car and they didn't decline the seatbelt. They took the airbag, the brakes, and the seatbelt. We all talk about multi-layers of security. Well, they understand it. They just don't know the right words to use. And then our apps are in the cloud. Yes, they are. But your password.txt file is still on the desktop, Steve. And I'm going to find it. And if I can find it, that means the bad guy can find it if they get onto your box. And then nothing of value. This couldn't be any more wrong. So we all kind of know this, but it's kind of good to level set this, especially if we're trying to talk to businesses in our community. Okay. Basically, three things that an attacker is probably going to want from them. They want to sell your data. Okay. Snag some W-2s, post them on the dark web, let people file returns, passwords, all that kind of stuff that we all know that gets sold. They want to hold your data for ransom. And we all know that gets easier all the time with the malware kits that are out there, for the low cost of $60 a month, you too can get into the ransomware business if you choose to. Tech support available 24/7. It's ridiculous. So now, and somebody else had kind of mentioned it, now when you consider the cost of living of other countries, a $300 ransom might seem like nothing to a small business, but that'll probably get you pretty well set wherever you live. So these guys are going to take those risks. And then the last part is they might just want your computers. They want to actually get on to your network so they can go do crime elsewhere. Okay. So I had asked about Fazio Mechanical and I saw a couple nods, a couple hands raised. Does anyone actually know what they're shouted out? Like if you know who Fazio Mechanical or what they have to do with security. Anyone? Target. We all know that Fazio or Target got nailed, but Fazio really didn't make the news. They released a PDF, data breach. They don't even have the data breach blog post, whatever it was, anymore. I found an article, I think it was like Krebs wrote about it, and then I went to try to get the PDF. It's not there anymore, so obviously they've moved on. Now, Fazio nowadays is around 150 people. They're a family-owned company. They've been around for a very, very long time. And I'm not going to pick on them, but I am going to give you just a very, very quick rundown of what happened. So Fazio got phished. No surprise. Using a tool called Citadel, they swiped browser-based information. They then found out that they could log into a customer-facing portal for Target. Once they got into Target, then they realized, oh, hey, this is, they have a little more access than we might need. And that's when they started to break into the point of sale system and start scraping credit cards. So Fazio, going back to that, I have product X. Fazio was using Malwarebytes, the free version. It is not an on-demand. It is not a constant running. You have to click the button and make it go. So the attackers got in, created an AD account, lights out. Okay. So the next one here is an esteemed colleague of ours who is around in the building. Talked to me about working an incident with the Department of Justice back in around 2013, 2014, same time as Target. And the crux of that one is there was a Chinese restaurant across the street from a courthouse. And they were they had a malicious PDF. They were doing a water hole attack. And the whole idea was they were trying to target the people that worked in the courthouse. So clerks, lawyers, all that stuff with a bad Chinese menu. Like, no joke. All right. So this one, the person that I was talking with, they couldn't really talk about it a lot, but when they were doing their investigation, they found this tool, Venom, which, and I don't claim to be a pen tester, but as I understand it, and from what I kind of tinkered with, is it allows you to build almost like lily pads of shells from one machine to another machine to your grandma's computer in Texas, into the Pentagon, whatever, you know. So once again, just a tool that's out there. Attackers can just do a nice little get, and they now have something that they can utilize for bad. This was actually found both in the DMZ of this small business, and then also was elsewhere. So they had kind of poked a bunch of holes through this company. Okay, so I run a security company, so I have some horror stories, and a lot of these are just from that lack of resources. A colleague of mine runs an IT shop, called me, said, "Hey, I'm out of town for the next few days, but a customer said that their computer's acting weird. Might be just weird computer, might be something else." So we looked. Well, we started checking. We noticed in talking to the person, they said, "Yeah, all the problems started when we updated QuickBooks." I was like, "Oh, that's not a surprise. QuickBooks kind of sucks when it comes to updating." So then we start looking. Well, we see some weird activity. This device is not instrumented for us. So Sysmon and Rita to the rescue. So now we can actually see what the hell's going on the box. And then as we're starting to unravel that part, I have a few part-timers on our team as analysts that high school, like in this case, the guy was a high school student still who's finishing up his senior year. And when we pulled the certificate, he just took the initiative, Googled the name on the certificate. That, by the way, that's not QuickBooks' certificate. As soon as we saw that and it didn't say Intuit, we knew what the problem was about to be. And he pulled up just a whole Huntress blog about this event that happened 6 freaking months ago. So this attack was still out there. And turns out we checked the browser history. It turns out that they went to whatever the first link was for, QuickBooks patch, and Google allowed them to SEO their way to the top. And this is what we're dealing with. Also come to find out that company had a VPN access into a much larger company in Iowa. And we believe that we caught it kind of before the attacker might have started moving around or anything else. So just one of those, again, in a way, we kind of protected 2 different companies at the same time. All right. So this one is great because it's a tale of the haves and the have-nots and the aware and the unaware. CPA firm. They got phished. Again, no surprise. They had 365 business standard. Okay, for those of you that know the ecosystem a little bit, there's limitations between the standard license and premium licenses. They actually need to know the full impact. Their state has data privacy and disclosure laws and all that. So they tell us we need to know every email that the attacker might have read. No can do. I can tell you every email the attacker touched, but I can't tell you if that was deleted or copied or anything else. So with that company, we ended up just dumping an entire list of every email that was touched in the time frame, sent those email addresses to the client and said, here's your list of announcement, but I can't tell you beyond that because your logging sucks. Brewery parts company. I know a few of us enjoy a good brew. Phishing attack. Surprise, surprise. Business premium. Yay. You get the advanced logging, you get longer retention. Now you can actually see what that account does to the email. Open, deleted, copied, blah, 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 blah. Logging not turned on. So Microsoft has recently fixed this. And by recently, I say, I think in the last couple of years. So if you set up a tenant, the audit logging should be turned on. But that's only within the last couple of years. And unfortunately, we see a lot of small businesses where the owner's brother works in IT and he set up the 365. Well, it turns out the owner's brother is like just a dev who actually doesn't really know anything. He probably just followed the wizard and made 365 work. Never went in there to do any settings. So with both of these problems, we could not accomplish this. For the first one, we were at least able to install an agent and go back 30 days and start seeing the logs. For the second one, we actually chased this bozo through the system. We thought we kicked him out and the guy got back in. Not totally sure. I think the owner told me he set MFA, but he didn't. And they actually were like posting malware or posting malicious files on the SharePoint. So finally, I had to tell the owner of that second company, we are turning off everybody's email right now, and you just have to deal with it because I can't, because he was literally texting me every like 10 minutes asking, how soon can I start sending emails again? I'm like, well, technically you're almost kind of sending emails right now because the bad guy's doing it, but we're trying our best here, bud. All right. Oh yeah. And yeah, they just wanted their email to work. Didn't care. All right. Here is the IR process. I believe this is the SANS IR process. So don't yell at me. It's not my process. It's somebody else's. But this is all super cool stuff. Preparation, declaring incidents. Now let's talk about how most SMBs handle an incident. And these are direct quotes. And over the last 10 years of me working with SMBs, these are all direct quotes that I unfortunately still remember. Okay. Well, we bought the computer. We didn't turn anything on. Didn't even turn on the damn McAfee that they try to push your way. They just ignored everything. Now, newer computer, that's probably not such a bad thing because the free version of Defender doesn't suck. And it's decent. Oh, double clutch. Sorry. We had a weird pop-up. Well, of course you got to click on it. And then what the F is Bitcoin? Probably around 2016, I had to drive from Central Iowa to Omaha with $5,000 in my pocket to go load into the only Bitcoin ATM that I could get to within a short drive. And the Bitcoin ATM was in a gas station in kind of a crappy looking part of Omaha. And I couldn't get that money in there fast enough, just afraid that I was going to get robbed. Forget finishing cleanup or eradication. Bill's son's coming over to wipe the computer. Bill's son's a high schooler. Uh-oh. Bill's son moved all the icons around and they can't get to Google. The Google. And then no idea what they should even report about. Okay. Those are the problems that small businesses face. And because there is sort of that stigma, there's that risk of reputation loss. there are a lot of small businesses out there that just quietly suffered or are still quietly suffering. I don't have the link to it, but one of my other talks I do, there's around 2016, as ransomware was getting really popular, a doctor's office in a small town in Michigan got popped. The doctors decided now would be a good time to retire. They closed the practice. For those of you that, go seek medical care on the regular and you don't have access to an option B, that really sucks. All your pre-op, post-op, all your kids got sick. Suddenly, you now have to drive much, much farther. The ransom that the attacker wanted was $3,500. And these two jokers just decided to bail. And ever since then, I pray that every day they step on a Lego. All right. So what can be done? We have preached MFA, passwords, security awareness over and over and over. And yeah, it's helped. We've cut down on things. There's some statistics to say, hey, load MFA and you've solved X percentage of the problem. I've heard people say 90%. Great. We have to actually start looking at how to harden these SMBs or VSBs and kind of creating a herd immunity, because you all work at larger organizations. You probably all have third-party vendors that would be clients of mine or could be clients of mine. You have a recruiter that is a one-person shop or a two-person shop, because I have both. And they are taking in all your applicants. They have all their information. They may have access into a portal that belongs to your company. Just imagine you get to onboard the new person to your team, and then a week later you find out and you have to tell them, hey, we would have actually mailed you this breach notification, but since you're in the office, here you go. Yeah, you got breached because our recruiter clicked on something. So we start with building the relationship from, rapport, talking, maybe asking a question, hey, I do security. Has anyone ever talked to you about security on your computers or security on your email? And they may look at you and may say one of those things. We're too small to be hacked. I installed Norton 24 months ago. All right, buddy, it doesn't work anymore. Because no business owner is just going to let you onto their network to start tinkering, or they might. And if they do, then they probably have already failed some social engineering. So buy them a cup of coffee. Even if it's a coffee shop, just say, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? I want to talk to you a little bit. Build that rapport, build trust, show a genuine desire to help. Leverage your talents. And in some cases, your old hardware. We all know that you have 3 Raspberry Pis just sitting someplace, and your partner wants you to get them the hell out of the house. So just do it. Get a Pi. Let's go do some cool shit. Hey, we're better together. So I say leverage your talents. I also know that there is time. I also know that there might be a little bit of, putting in your treasury. But this is very important. So some of the things, the recipe to maybe helping your new non-client client be more successful. Or at the very least, like in my case in the previous slide, I at least was able to talk my dentist office, my kid's dentist office, into getting rid of their Windows 7 machine that was logged into another either Windows 7 or 2008 server. So it was just bad all around. So talk to them. Hey, do you have 365 or Google? We should look to see if you have auditing. An AV that has no cost built into your computer? Yeah, Defender can be your friend. If they want to spring for the paid version, oh, hell yeah, even better. I don't know if there's any red teamers in here, but I know from talking to some that if you take Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and you set up those attack surface reduction rules, it becomes a really hard sledding for you. Most companies need to buy the licensing anyway. It's a little bit more money, but just explaining them those risks. Honey tokens. We all love honey tokens, honey pots. They're great for that nosy person at the company that wants to see how much so and so makes, or the jackwagon that was dumb enough to actually pull it across their computer and open it from Romania or wherever. Fun fact, a lot of attackers, if they think that they're going to be discovered, will stop in their tracks and just shut down. They may not press the attack. Hardware. If you haven't spun up a honeypot on a little box before, go and learn it. If you want to learn more about it, go take John's ADHD class. If you want to get really super nerdy and help somebody, we've all played with Elk at one point or a time. And Waza, Security Onion, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Slap Elk on one of those boxes that you've been told to get out of the house for years. Install an agent to all of their machines. Set up email alerting. It will detect. It won't respond automatically unless you pay a subscription. But you now have something that gives people a fighting chance. And coupled with Defender on the endpoint itself, the Elastic agent. For those of you that don't know, years ago, Elastic bought Endgame, just as they were kind of hitting their stride. So it's a very effective EDR. But you can do that. And again, takes a little of your time, a little of your talent, maybe a little bit of money out of your pocket, but it doesn't have to. But they don't understand it. They don't know what an EDR is. Hell, there are some, especially when we talk about XDR, there are some vendors out there that don't really know what an XDR actually is either. They just say it's XDR. So we have to kind of speak to them in a way that they understand. I like talking from the side of car safety. We have regulations. We can't speed. If we speed, we get caught. We pay a fine, might receive other punishments. I can't buy a car from Japan directly and just bring it here because it doesn't meet safety requirements. But I can now buy a 1999 R34 Skyline because it's considered an antique. So I can relive my Fast and the Furious days. Airbags, brakes, seatbelt, they all work together to keep you safe. I know there's probably a person here who's like, man, F the seatbelt. We die like men. I don't drive with it. I have the little seatbelt clip thing that stops it from dinging. Great. I'm happy for you. But your outcomes are far better when you have all of your safety layers in place. I came from the Navy, like I said. A guy that I worked with talked about safety, and he said the idea is keeping the blood in the body. And I kind of like that idea. Testing of safety features to identify gaps in processes. That kind of sounds familiar. Airbag testing, crash testing. If you're Volvo, pick up a car with a crane, drop it face first. And then when you realize that it didn't quite work right, you go and you fix it. Okay. Body shops, insurance. You get in an accident, whether it's your fault, someone else's fault, whatever, you probably have a way to financially make yourself whole again. That body shop also kind of steps in to help out at the same time. So look at the other side of that. Now, yes, I know I put red teaming, but, pen test, vulnerability scan, full red team, whatever. Those are all kind of in that same vein. So now you have a one-to-one relationship, and you can super nerd out. You could even start talking proactive systems versus reactive systems. You could talk about, various layers to regulation and compliance and stuff and how it all works. I did originally have a prize, but the prize looks like crap. But can anyone tell me what AI drew up in the middle there? Does anyone know what that might be? Okay, yeah, the all-seeing eye thing is kind of like, I don't know why I put that in there. The Rosetta Stone. Very good. So the Rosetta Stone, for those of you that maybe paid attention in school, the Rosetta Stone was kind of like a way of translating from one language into another. It was one of the first kind of things that were found that help people understand a language. And now it's a very overpriced language learning tool. So this car and Infosec relationship here, a couple of years ago, had my assistant fly out from California. On the way back from the airport, me and her grabbed some breakfast, and I actually brought a toy car, just a little blue Mini Cooper, and we talked about this stuff. She doesn't know what an EDR is. She doesn't need to know what an EDR is. But when she talked to somebody and they asked if, do you guys like use like or monitor for antivirus or something? She said, yeah, we have layers of security that we also monitor for you. Okay, great. That answers the question. If they want to get more technical, come find me. All right. So we're going to kind of land this plane a little early, which is totally okay. A lot of the solopreneurs that are out there, like I said, they are providing critical services. It's not just your coffee. It's not just getting your back cracked. They are plugged into your networks in one way or another. Even if they're just in your trust circle, you regularly receive emails from Tim, and Tim works for a 2-person shop that handles some sort of vendor thing. Tim sends you what looks like a normal, should be there invoice, totally expected. Whoops. Yes, you probably have controls that will make that whoops a little less effective, but we all know that security can fail. So let's go and protect Tim and his little shop. Fall's a nice time of year. Coffee is best warm. And you should start talking to these small businesses. I also want to give a shout out to Matt Ireland, who, as it says, he's CISO at NTT Research. He actually lives in the same town as I do. We actually have quite a eclectic group of security professionals that one day in my fever dream, I'm just going to hire all of them to come work for us. So let me see. All right. Like I said, a lot of businesses out there. Yeah, outside. I am talking about, you will have to go outside and probably talk to these businesses. You'll probably have to talk to humans. So you can't Slack them. They don't know what Slack is. Okay. You have the time. You have the talent. Even if you're just starting out, I guarantee you know more than most of the customers that I've helped out with. And that's not an insult to them, because I don't know shit about construction. I don't know anything about building an EHR platform, but I have a customer that's doing it. Because the other thing that's kind of in here is, you think of like startups. Startups are typically 1-2-person shops. They have an idea that they wrote down on a paper napkin, and now they are just trying to rush to MVP stage. And if you don't know what MVP in this case means, it's most or minimal viable product. So your product could look like complete crap. It could weigh 700 pounds, but it runs. And now somebody is going to give you money. And then they're going to give you more money. And you're going to make the product suck less. And then eventually you sell it to somebody. But those startups, they want to rush to fix the problem that they have come about. And at no point have they thought about doing anything related to security. Any questions? How much open source do we use? We use a ton of it. So we have built our own SIM. We utilized Elastic as the foundation of it. We've definitely taken a look at it and said, okay, this feature is way overkill. That feature doesn't apply. These rules may not apply. We've done things with Sysmon. We've done things with using Rita. A lot of the tools that we kind of talk about, and then they're cool, and then we move on because there's something more shiny. Most of our customers actually already have sysinternals at least unzipped on their computers. So when the poo hits the fan and nothing else works, it's auto runs and Process Explorer, baby. We're going to do it really old school, because we have customers across the country too. So it becomes the problem of like, all right, I hope I can still get internet access to this machine if it's been compromised. But we all know also that for every company that I work with that has this stuff in place, there's all those companies like I talked about. They're behind the eight ball. They don't have logging. They don't have an AV that's actually functional. Any other questions? Okay, so when do you stop helping somebody because they really don't want to help themselves almost, right? So we talk about risk, we talk about threat modeling, we talk about all that stuff. I like to call it a threat-informed, risk-based decision. And I will admit, I had talked with a client. They had had a couple of close calls or a couple of issues in the past. And I should back up. They weren't officially a client. I was trying to make them a client. And the owner of the company kept pushing back all the things, all the myths, didn't want to spend the money, blah, blah, blah. That's why I have insurance. That's why I have backups. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to come over later on. I have an old computer and I'm going to set it up as a little black box for when your company crashes, then somebody can actually figure out what the hell happened. So when I talked about small hardware, running Sysmon, Elk, whatever, if it doesn't detect and allow you to respond in some way, at the very least, the IR company that gets hired can walk up and go, hey, what's this box here? Oh, some dude gave this to us, and I guess it logs things. That IR company is going to probably want to hug you because there are tons of cases out there where nothing was logged or nothing was centrally logged, things like that. So thank you. So sometimes just like if you're trying to save somebody from drowning or from a fire, you have to put your own personal protection in front of that. So I can tell a customer, hey, these were the things, or tell somebody these are what can happen, but I can't make them like sign the contract. So I just have to tell them, hey, good luck. Or we come to a point where they don't want to get rid of their Windows 7 machine because it's running the app that keeps the company going. And they won't bend, or they can't bend because they're in so much tech debt. Not so much a security thing, but I will, just to kind of help frame how some small businesses are. I was with an MSP. I was doing assessments, and the assessments varied from really whatever the sales guy wanted to make them to be. I got assigned to go work to assess a manufacturing company. The problem that they were having is that their ERP system was old. It was actually built on Delphi. Anyone know what Delphi? Heard of it? Nothing? Yeah, like me neither. So apparently there was like 6 versions of Delphi because the guy had every Delphi book. So they had a guy on payroll, worked there, who was their ERP guy. He had built their ERP. The guy got sick. He went on FMLA for a while. He had cancer. He comes back. He's still kind of doing chemo or whatever. They actually built a bathroom in an office and moved him to that office so he could, because I think he was also in a wheelchair at one point. So he could get back and forth into his office and continue to prop this ancient ERP up. So I get there, and the first thing that we have to figure out is, can the data be imported to anything that anyone could read this century? And I don't remember all the ERP brands that are out there or the ones that we were kind of looking at to help them. Well, by the time I got up there to do it, he was in hospice. I interviewed a dying man to find out how his ERP system he made ticked. Probably one of the worst days that I've ever had on a job. And I have literally seen people die, or I've seen fires. So morbid. So that's the kind of tech debt that you might be looking at with some of these companies. Now, they were a little bit bigger. They were like a 30-person manufacturing plant, but their ERP was held up with like straws and bubble gum and operated by a man who had days, weeks at best. So, and I actually want to say that for your own organizations, if you are the like neck-bearded wizard that built something and never documented it, I hope you step on a Lego. Find somebody in your team and help them to understand what you have created. Not because you're going to get cancer, but because one day you're going to be like, you know what? It's time to retire, or it's time for me to go do something else. And you left the opposite of a legacy. You left a bunch of like just random ass sticky notes for people to figure out. And I know that like question turned into a tangent, but hey, that's why they gave me this microphone. So any other questions? Would legislation help? Yes. We all know about like CMMC and NIST and all those things. And we do help with compliance. And I tell the customers that don't have a compliance today that could change. I like to pick on like the electrician industry just because. But if a series of things happened in that industry, the executive branch could just stroke a pen and say, hey, guess what? You now fall under CIS controls, or you must adhere to CMMC, whatever the case may be. One thing I didn't touch on earlier in kind of from that compliance side, the state of Iowa in their really, really wise thinking, they decided that a state with a little over 3 million people should have 99 counties. That also means we have 99 county auditors that are responsible for elections within these counties. There is a vast majority of them that do not have even a person assigned with an IT title. A lot of times that task falls to the assessor because they have the big server for GIS. You have a server, so you know what you're doing. They get turnkey systems from companies that I'm not going to name, but they have the same administrator password on every machine. I have worked with several counties over the years, and when they're like, yeah, we have this product, I'm like, cool, can I check to see if I can get into your server with the administrator password? And then when it happens, it's like, please, no, not again. And weirdly enough, that company got ransomware. But going back with legislation, funding, things like that, I know they just cut like $6 million that they could give to small businesses. South Dakota, the Dakota State peeps, they actually got $1 million of it. And South Dakota has about 90,000 businesses. For those of you that aren't like really good at math, that's $11 per business. Can anyone fix any security problem for $11? Because you can't even buy a freaking pizza to then invite people in for security awareness training. Unless you get like the Little Caesars ones, and those are hot trash. So with all that, go out and help your community. Thank you.